Can you share the screen, please? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
And the screen come on, please. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today. It's a pleasure to be here again. How have your weeks been last week? And I hope that you are bouncing and ready for the new challenges of the week. You're welcome to the webinar today. All right, so today we are looking at episode 5 of our series of webinars, and we are focusing more on DFI expectations for most especially African projects. And we have been going through project financing, readiness, and environmental readiness for projects that are seeking funding, social risk matters. Last week, we looked at a comprehensive risk register, and we are able to understand different aspects of risk. I also shared with us in the last episode the different pre-operational, different aspects of risk that development financial institutions look at. So today we are focused on the DFI expectations for African projects. So I would run quickly as usual and take a few 10, 15 minutes and then come back to us. If we have any questions, we take the questions. If there are none, then we close and face the business of the day. So if we check, we would see that most African projects talking about development finance institutions, they are viable projects, scalable in terms of economic analysis. But when it comes to financing due to structure of the project proponent, the financial institutions will usually demand more. So we want to discuss today how to provide practical insight into what the DFIs and your lenders and generally institutional investors, what they are looking at, so that what they normally access before committing their funds into the project and why they do that. So the session is useful for us consultants in the room, if any, project developers and government agencies, even banks, commercial banks inclusive, because they are also beginning to look at projects with the lens of a DFI now. And generally organizations who are preparing projects for financing, this session is for you. So the objectives of the session today is to look at what DFIs look for generally, like I've said, the governance expectation, the common reasons for why projects fail, their scrutiny in that regard, and how projects can improve their financing readiness in the overall. We received a question that someone was asking, Dr. Comfort, who are DFIs really? And I thought today, let me mention it because in all our series, we are majorly referring to DFIs. So DFIs, simply, they are development finance institutions. They are slightly different from commercial banks because they are not just about profit, they are about development. They look at reputation, they look at risk, other types of risk apart from profit and loss, apart from economics. So they are institutions that are established to support economic development through technical support. They don't just give out funding, but they provide technical support and through financing eventually. Example of this is African Development Bank, Afrexim Bank, IFC, which is a part of the World Bank, and the Propaco, and several regional international development finance institutions, including the DFC from the United States of America. So unlike our commercial banks, the DFIs, they look at sustainability. They look at the development impact. If this project happens, what is the impact of on the people? What is the impact on the community? And they like to measure it. They like to measure it, the social parameters, the environmental parameters, the different aspects of the project that could positively impact the communities and the people and the country, or negatively do so. So they check also the governance structure of the proponent of this project. Is it the government? What is the structure that they have? Is it the private sector? What is the governance structure that they have in place? And they also look at the risk, as we have looked at in the last episode. And then they look at the long-term project viability. Is this project viable in the long run? If there is a social issue, can this project survive? We have seen a lot of projects fail because of social concerns and risks that was not properly managed. So why does DFIs matter? In this next slide 4. DFIs play a major role in financing infrastructure, which can include linear projects, railroad, cutting across different countries, cutting across different states within a country. And it could be as large as you can think of, and as medium scale as you can also imagine. It can also include agriculture. It can include mining. It can include manufacturing. And recently, it has majorly included energy, most especially renewable energy, and also generally development projects across Africa. And the DFI's involvement is very important because it improves the project credibility. That is why even the commercial banks today, they copy the DFI standards in order to be able to, they are considering it. They have approached us, even very local banks. They have approached that, hey, we need to run an ESDD on this project before we fund it. So we will tackle ESDD in another episode, another day. But in the overall, the reason is because it improves project credibility. And once a DFI has funded a project, it becomes very easy for a commercial bank to join in the funding spree, because most projects could be funded or sponsored by more than 1, 2, 3, both commercial banks and DFIs putting hands together to make sure that the project succeed. So DFC and IFC and African Development Bank, these 3 major DFIs, can decide that they want to fund social projects that spans across Africa. It could be a railroad, it could be an infrastructure project that spans across Africa. They would want to fund it, and then they can collaborate. They always do collaborate in that instance. So when a commercial bank sees that, they are very willing to jump in and also be part of the project. It reduces in the overall the perceived risk of that project. Once a DFI has agreed to fund the project, it means that the risks have been reduced. And it also provides access to longer term financing. It's not 1 year, it's not 2 years, it could be 20 years financing plan that could bring in. Because why? The environmental risks, the social risks, the governance structure is intact, is reliable, and it can be funded. So these commercial banks are more comfortable when they see a DFI standard is being applied on a particular project. So generally, what does DFIs look for? So before they finance a project, DFIs typically will assess 5 major areas. The first is environmental and social compliance, and even beyond the compliance, finding out what the risks are and whether they can be mitigated or not. And then the governance system, and then the financial sustainability, the risk management structure that is in place. We have dealt with this several times. And then whether the community, the country, the people, whether they generally accept the project, or there is or it is an unpopular project. It is a project that would affect them, and they know, and they are not happy about it. This is a clear red flag. So projects are no longer assessed only on projected revenue. Oh, yes, they can pay back within so period and there would be so much profit. No, it's whether the project can responsibly be managed and whether it will be sustained over a long period of time. They do not want to fund a project that after 2 years is abandoned. We see a lot of projects like that. In fact, my heart bleeds in a particular country when I went and I saw some projects that were developed by several DFIs put together all over the country within the communities, clusters of those projects, and they were all abandoned. It was the ghost of itself. And I say, what is this? What happened? So these are the kind of, it could be elite capture. Yeah, it could be elite capture that a project is coming in and politicians or some interest group who are not qualified to manage the project, capture the project and begin to dictate what should be. And after a period of time, the competency level cannot match the challenges and they will just abandon it and go away. So these are the type of project DFIs consider as red flag once they sense that this is what is happening. So without identifying and creating the environmental and social liabilities on time, finding out what are the liabilities of these issues, environmental issues, social issues, including elite capture, as I mentioned. What is the liability? Okay, this is the liability. How do we manage it? The issue is not just that there is a liability. It is that it is not managed. So if it is not managed, it is even a more complicated issue. So we'll move very fast now. Environmental and social concerns. DFIs expect projects to demonstrate strong E&S management system. Sometimes we call it ESMS. We will look at that in another episode in the future. And it includes majorly environmental and social impact assessment, environmental and social management plan, and the other monitoring systems that need to be put in place. The next slide is about the governance expectation. Governance, the structure, the people, the system, the transparency, the procurement structure, the anti-corruption controls. What is the accountability structures? What is the compliance culture that this project proponent is already familiar with and implementing? Not that they're about to learn it, but they already have it structurally in their system. What are those? They pay close attention to these indicators when it comes to governance expectation. When these indicators are weak, then it creates a financial risk. So it's better prepared ahead and managed properly. The next slide is about risk management expectations. They want to see whether you have identified those structured risks, whether you have operational controls, that's as you are operating. Do you have controls to be managing the risks as they come up? Are you prepared for emergencies? Do you have how to manage the incidents when they occur? And do you monitor? If you do not monitor, the financial risk perception goes up. But if there is a managed view that can be easily presented, easily reviewed, then the financial risk exposure goes down. The next slide is common reasons projects fail DFI screening. They fail financing assessments because the ESG documentation is weak, your ESIA is weak, the ESMP is weak, the air quality management plan is weak, the biodiversity management plan is weak, the stakeholders were poorly engaged, there is no evidence that you plan to monitor or that you are even monitoring. There is no structure in the organization. Nobody is responsible for anything. Perhaps it's just the MD, or it's just the minister, or it's just the president that takes the project at heart. Other people are just following. No clear responsibility, no governance system. That is a high risk. So the problem is insufficient preparation and poor project structuring. So the next slide, quickly. Generally in Africa, you will see that people would not execute the normal E&S instruments. They will not commence, they will not plan to, they just want the funding. And then when the DFI now says, okay, I will need to see this, I will need to see your E&S, I will need to see your risks identification and your register and your legal, everything social, everything environmental. It now becomes, oh, Richflood, how do you tackle this for us? Please, we need this in 15 days. We need this in 2 weeks. We need this in 3 weeks. That becomes late, that becomes rushed, that becomes weak. And it shows that the organization has very weak documentation culture. They do not actually understand, or they ignore what standards are, and that is not good. And that will definitely create some compliance gaps in the future. So it's a red flag. So African projects majorly have that gap. And when the projects attempt not to address E&S issues requirement, or they do it very late in the financing cycle, then it creates delay even for the accessing the funds, and additional cost, and even the lender concerns becomes increased daily. The next slide is how projects can now, based on all this we have discussed, become DFI ready. Do it early. The challenges I have mentioned is just the opposite of it is the solution. Align with standards early, familiarize yourself with the standards. If you're targeting financing from IFC, then the IFC performance standards is a must. So you have to look into your governance structure and see how to strengthen them, and even have it on paper first. When you have it on paper, you begin to conceptualize. Even as a government, we've seen top national projects that lack governance and institutional systems to execute them. So if either you're a consultant for government, or you're a consultant for the project proponent, or you are the project proponent itself, you have to have these governance systems early enough documented, so that as people join, they fit into a plan, and then you have a proper implementation documentation, and the active monitoring begins early during the conceptualization phase. Once that monitoring is in place and there is evidence to back it up and it is consistent, then the project is good to go. Even Richflood will be so happy to hop in, because the job is easy, the people understand why, and while we're bringing in these governance issues, they just key in because they already get the point. They're already in it. There is a system they're already practicing, and so everybody just flows in, and quickly we are able to move forward. You have some project proponents even get offended when you say, okay, we need to set up a governance structure for you. We need to have, more especially in the government cycle. On this project, we need clearly who is doing what, and when, and why, and how will he report to who. So, and they're like, no. And then the project is stuck, and then the DFI just goes quiet. So, next slide is DFI standards that we commonly have. Like I have mentioned, the IFCPS. We have also the World Bank Environmental Social Framework. We have the Equator Principles. Depending on your project, depending on the scope, depending on the magnitude, depending on the sensitivity we have different standards that apply where necessary. Next slide is how Richflood can support you. I have mentioned that earlier. Please let us start early. Not when you are being asked by the DFI and then you come in and you have 15 days, because they give time frames. They give time frames. It's not only your project, they move on. Once your project is not ready, and so we want it to be on time and early in the planning stage of the project. So the key message today is that DFI finances projects that demonstrate structure, that demonstrate governance, that have risk awareness, and how to resolve those risks. It is a core financing requirement as we go on. So thank you very much. We have now 10 to 11 minutes to take questions. And I hope that this session has provided practical insight into how your project can face the DFIs and have funding sustainably throughout the project, and even have more both commercial banks and more DFIs join your project. In another episode, we will look at how to package a project and approach the DFIs, what to put together, what to not put in the project, and what to make the project look attractive in the long run. Yeah, and I'll bring examples from the government side of projects that have failed, projects that succeeded, and why the other ones failed, and even inter-country projects that have failed also, funded or intending to be funded by DFC from the US, but failed because the parties, the countries will not do the needful when it comes to governance for that particular project. I'll be sharing that with us as example in a full episode. So I will now look in the room. If you have any question, please. Hello, Miriam from UNICEF. Yes. So the challenge we're having is that we do not have this registration before people come into the room. But what happens is that once you have attended this webinar, the series of webinars, if you have attended it 4 to 5 times, you're eligible for a certificate, and we can download, same time we can download the slides from Canva and share to you. Yes, because we are not able to have a staff who will be working on this. This is a free training, so we limit the number of hours that personnel spend on the agenda. So yes, we will share with you if you remain consistent and you here 4 to 5 times. And the register is on the chat page now. You can enter your details as attendance sheet. All right. So do we have any questions? Otherwise, we shut down the room so we can face the business of the day. Thank you, Mr. Joe Spinoza. Thank you. Martina from UNICEF. It's your first time. Okay, you're welcome. You have missed, this is the 5th episode. You have missed 4 episodes. And also, once you have completed the number of episodes, we would also share with you the links to access the other episodes. Whatever you ask at that point will be responding. Mr. Kainde Basi from MSN Energy Resources Limited, you are welcome. Madam Judith Ochibo, you are welcome. That's the registration link in the room. You can use it to please put in your attendance if you care to do that. It's not compulsory, but if you think that in the future you may need a certification that your certificate of attendance, then that will be fine for you to enter your attendance. Rachel Bodunde, yes, you can have the slides, like I said, but that's after a few participations. So what you need to do now is to enter your email and details in the link that is in the chat box, and we will be fine with sending you the details after a number of episodes attended. Okay. All right. So I would thank us now, and then we can close the room. Okay. Mr. Coker, is it Miss or Mr. Coker Joseph? You have attended 4 times now. Thank you. Please keep it up. We only started taking the attendance when we saw that people were interested in having certification and were demanding. So thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. All right. So I would wish us all a very, very good week ahead. And please make your projects bankable, conceptualize new projects, think about it, check around you. There are projects that the DFIs are looking for people who would sponsor, people who will come forward, and it can be so easy if you have the will, the competence to drive those projects. All right. Thank you so much, and please do have a very lovely week ahead. Goodbye. Okay. Mr. Joma, can you please end the call on your side?
Okay.